Hello my friends, this is Jose, and today I want to talk to you about my feelings about the lifting of the embargo of Cuba by the Obama administration. Many of you know that we fled from my island of Cuba when I was about 5 or 6 years of age. My father had two businesses there that Castro took away basically at gunpoint. My grandmother had the biggest private school in Cuba, which Castro took away when we left the island in 1961 on a Pan American flight. Castro's people would call us worms, and every woman would have to go into the airport, with a female nurse or something, to be investigated in her private areas to see whether they were confiscating jewelry or like money, that kind of stuff. I remember when I was a little kid vividly at the age of 4 that Castro's soldiers, called the milicianos, came into my house. We were in an upper middle class neighborhood, came with rifles, ransacked all of our drawers, all of our closets, investigated everything. That is a vivid memory that as long as I live on this earth I will not forget. So I was one of those Cubans that was very embittered towards Castro, and I was all for the embargo because I felt that it was a punishment, it was a retaliation against what Castro had done to us. My father took several journeys to Cuba recently. I have not been to Cuba ever since Castro took over. And he said, Jose, I think that the lifting of the embargo is something good. And I must confess that my flesh arose at that moment in anger towards him. But I listened to his wisdom, and I think it's the right wisdom. He believes that the lifting of the embargo is going to start to empower the people of Cuba. Not that they're going to cause a revolution against Castro, but to empower them with the resources, with the money, to start to do something for themselves. Right now, Americans are very deceived because when they go to Cuba, they say, oh, Cuba is gorgeous. Look at all these nightclubs. Look at all these beautiful hotels. Look at all these neat cars. But what they don't realize is that Castro takes a tourist only to a specific area made for tourists. The other parts of Cuba are totally destroyed by him. But part of the problem in Cuba is that the people have nothing, so they have no empowerment and resources, or in anything that, or in even if they could buy arms like on the black market, whatever. They have no resources, no money, nothing to even arise or like to become stronger. My concern has been that Castro will take the money and the trade coming from the embargo, which I'm sure he's going to do, and funnel it into countries such as Venezuela, which he is militarizing Venezuela in exchange for their oil, and other countries that he wants to export his kind of terrorism to through the money that tourism gives to him. But I'll discuss that in a moment. But my father had a very curious story which really changed me, and this is what I want to share with you. He went into a restaurant when he was in Cuba, and the waiter was just standing there. There was different tourists at the table, and the waiter was doing nothing. He was just kind of watching a black and white TV that they had there, doing nothing. Horrible service. And my father called him over and said to him, this is just terrible service. It's here I am sitting, and you've not come to ask me what I want. And he could tell that this guy was hopeless. He had no motivation. The little that the government would just give to him is, it was a ritual. He would get his one chicken a week, or his calling time. He would have to queue in a line to get calling time for his phone. There were things that I heard in Cuba that when there was no coffee beans, people were grinding normal beans from a plant just to make coffee with it. So no motivation. But my father kind of rebuked him, and he said, you know, this is terrible service. And my father said to him, you know what? If you give me great service, I'm going to give you $1. And imagine, an American dollar for a Cuban back in Cuba is like $20. He says, if you serve me, I'm going to give you $1. So this guy served my father, and my father put $1 on the table and left. The next day he came, and the waiter rushed him, and he said to him, Don Pepe, because that's his nickname. Jose means Pepe. Says, Don Pepe, it is so good to see you. How's everything going? What can I do for you today? And my father says, your waitressing has really improved. I'm very, very happy. So my father left, ate, and gave him $1 more. The next day, the guy sees him coming, and he has a big grin, and he says, Don Pepe, how was your evening? Did you have a wonderful sleep? You know, the motivation lack of money. And my father called him over, and he said, you know what? You see all these tourists here? You see all these tourists sitting here? He said, can you imagine if you gave all them the service that you're giving me right now? The amount of money that you would make? And that changed this man's life. And that really impressed me. That the lifting of the embargo, if money would come to people, and what I think that Castro and Raul and Fidel Castro are so corrupted. My theory is that the money that comes in now is not really going to go to the people. It's going to go to them, and it's going to go to export terrorism to other countries. But whatever can come to the people will be happy. But I really believe, because Castro is my father's age, he's 89 years of age. That's Fidel. I think Raul is like 90. So these guys are going to die off. My theory is, whether I'm right or wrong, that the people behind them, even though they've been getting trained by the Castros, are not going to want to keep the island in the way that they had kept the island in 54 years. So my theory is that the embargo is good for one reason. It's going to start to empower the people of Cuba sooner or later with the money that comes into them to to arise and to make a better life for themselves. I'm not into the lifting of the embargo because I have any trust in what Fidel Castro is doing, because I have zero trust in him. For 54 years he's proved not worthy. Fidel Castro will sign, like all these communists, they will sign anything with the, oh yeah, you want to sign this? That's what I'm concerned about, the Iran thing. It's the same devil with a different color. Castro would sign any contract you wanted him to sign. Oh yeah, you want me to sign here? Sure, I'll sign. The next week, he will break it. I believe that the Iranese, the Iran people will not commit to anything. Will not commit to anything that the U.S. has signed with them, because they are the same devil with a different color. And that's where the Obama administration, knowingly or unknowingly, is playing Russian roulette, not just with Israel, but with all of our lives. So the intentions of the Obama administration to normalize relationships with Cuba, I have no trust in them. I don't think that they are benevolent. I don't think that Obama has done it to be gracious. But whatever. That's it. That's between him and God. Nor do I think that Castro's intentions are like good, because in 54 years he's not proven to be good. But I do believe that it's going to empower the people of Cuba, and I do believe that the next government will be more lenient. So I think that in the name of the Cuban people that are on the island, my Cuban compatriots that I've left behind, that for that only one reason that my father stated, that this guy got motivated to do something for himself, to empower himself when he started to see money coming to him. I believe that this could be a valuable thing for the people of Cuba. So that's why I feel as a Cuban that was so opposed to the lifting of the embargo, that for one reason and only one reason only, that the lifting of the embargo could be something good. Well, thank you for listening. Bye-bye.